What if I told you that dozens of American tankers, laden with liquefied natural gas, have been forced to take the long way around to Asia, wasting precious time? In total, these vessels carry a staggering 3 billion cubic meters of fuel, a response to skyrocketing gas prices on the global market. Traditionally, the most efficient route from the US to Asia winds through the Panama Canal. Yet, an unexpected traffic jam has derailed those plans, pushing the tankers to opt for an alternative route through the Suez Canal. This change comes amidst a fierce demand for energy in the Asia-Pacific region, where prices remain high. But the tides of the global market are shifting. In recent years, Russia has been aggressively developing the Northern Sea route, slashing delivery times to Asia to under 3 weeks, thanks to an expanding icebreaker fleet. In stark contrast, American tankers navigating through the Suez Canal face a minimum journey of 4 weeks. American suppliers are acutely aware that Russia's advancements provide it with a serious competitive edge. As a result, Washington periodically raises the issue of international regulations for the Northern Sea route, urging Moscow to open this passage to all nations. However, Russian authorities have repeatedly dismissed such proposals, signaling that such a scenario is off the table. Recent incidents involving American tankers, which had to divert around the Panama Canal, only underscored the collapse of U.S. ambitions regarding the Northern Sea route. Amidst these challenges, news emerged that the Russian tanker, Christophe de Margerie, successfully completed a groundbreaking commercial voyage to Asia, marking a historic first for vessels of its kind traversing the eastern route of the Northern Sea route. As the West grapples with these developments, initial accusations against Russia regarding the damage to the Baltic Connector gas pipeline, linking Finland and Estonia, seem to be fading. Following the incident, Finnish officials hastily blamed Russia, suggesting the damage might have been intentional. Yet, a different narrative soon surfaced, proposed by Finnish expert J.K. Savolainen, who pointed to the likelihood of accidental damage from an anchor, noting the pipe was only damaged on one side and shifted from its place. Despite this, Western politicians, including Latvia's President Edgars Rinkēvičs, continued to explore the option of blaming Russia while proposing to restrict access for Russian vessels in the Baltic Sea, should any involvement be confirmed. Nevertheless, Finnish authorities have increasingly leaned towards the accidental damage theory, which could ease tensions surrounding the incident. The possibility of closing the Gulf of Finland between Western nations and their allies has gained traction against the backdrop of the current geopolitical climate. The basis for such action exists, as the corridor currently utilized by Russia is a mere 6 nautical miles wide. This corridor resulted from a voluntary shift in territorial waters by Estonia and Finland back in 1995. Just 2 weeks ago, I highlighted how such a move could spark real conflict. Although discussions surrounding this scenario remain largely theoretical for now. Yet, some actions are already underway. For instance, at the beginning of 2025, the Estonian government tasked its departments with developing a plan for establishing a contiguous zone beyond its territorial waters. This could be the first step toward detaining and inspecting Russian vessels transiting through the Gulf of Finland, seen by experts as a probe into potential future sanctions or restrictions. As tensions escalate, the fate of energy supply routes hangs in the balance. With geopolitical rivalries intensifying, will the Northern Sea route emerge as the new backbone of global commerce? Or will the West find ways to disrupt its growing significance? The stakes have never been higher. In the backdrop of shifting global dynamics, a fascinating narrative unfolds. The Russian tanker, Christophe de Margerie, carved its path through icy waters, embarking on a groundbreaking commercial journey to Asia. It became the first vessel of its class to traverse the eastern route of the Northern Sea route, an unprecedented feat that sent ripples through international waters. Simultaneously, tensions simmered in the West. Initial accusations against Russia regarding the damage to the Baltic Connector, the undersea pipeline linking Finland and Estonia, began to lose their steam. Shortly after the incident, Finnish officials hastily pointed fingers, suggesting that Russia might have tampered with the pipeline. However, as details emerged, a new perspective took shape. Finnish expert, J.K. Savolainen, proposed that the damage could have been an accidental mark left by an anchor. He noted that the pipeline bore damage on one side and appeared displaced, casting doubt on malicious intent. Yet, Western politicians, including Latvia's President Edgars Rinkēvičs, clung to the notion of holding Russia accountable. They even floated the idea of restricting Russian vessels' access to the Baltic Sea, should evidence of wrongdoing arise. However, a shift began to take place. In recent days, Finnish authorities leaned towards savoring the theory of an accidental blow, signaling a possible reduction in the surrounding tensions. Amidst this chaotic backdrop, a discussion ignited about potentially closing the Gulf of Finland between Western nations and their allies. A prospect intensifying amid the current geopolitical tensions. Foundations to support this arose. After all, the corridor currently utilized by Russia spans a mere 6 nautical miles. This corridor was a product of a voluntary shift in territorial waters made by Estonia and Finland back in 1995. 2 weeks prior, I noted how this maneuver could ignite real conflict, a thought that remains largely speculative. Yet, actions have begun to unfold. For instance, at the start of 2025, the Estonian government tasked its agencies with devising a plan to establish a contiguous zone beyond its territorial waters. What are the implications of such a move? Could it signal deeper divisions and emerging conflicts surrounding maritime access? As developments unfold, the air thickens with uncertainty, and unanswered questions linger. Stay tuned, as the story continues to evolve. In the previous segment, discussions around the possibility of tension between nations were still largely theoretical. However, definitive steps began to unfold. For instance, by early 2025, the Estonian government instructed its agencies to create a plan for establishing a jurisdictional zone outside its territorial waters. This plan marks the first stride toward halting and inspecting Russian vessels navigating through the Gulf of Finland. Analysts interpret this as a probing initiative for potential future sanctions or restrictions. Simultaneously, Latvia's president, Edgars Rinkēvičs, known for his outspoken views, proposed even more stringent moves. It's uncertain whether his actions stem from personal initiative or if he embodies the collective stance of the West, gauging Russia's response. Recent remarks indicate that Western politicians recognize the grave risk of escalating conflict with Russia, possibly leading to military confrontations. In a surprising twist, they redirected their gaze toward a new suspect, China. On August 28, Finnish authorities reported that the damaged Baltic pipe most likely suffered from the Chinese container ship Nunupallo, flagged in Hong Kong. Investigators revealed a ship's anchor struck the pipe, causing the damage. Photographs emerged showing the vessel missing its left anchor and sustaining damage to its containers. At first glance, it may seem like China has no involvement, but the reality is far more complex. The West, particularly the United States, has long had fraught relations with China, and this incident could be exploited politically. Moreover, the Nunupallo became the first Chinese ship to traverse the Northern Sea route, thanks to melting ice and advancements in Russia's icebreaker fleet. This newfound route dramatically shortens the time needed for transporting goods between Europe and Asia. Instead of the usual 50 days required to navigate the Suez Canal, this path took just 25 days. Setting sail from St. Petersburg in early August, it delivered Russian goods to Shanghai and successfully returned, escorted by Russian icebreakers. What unforeseen obstacles loom as this strategic route emerges on the global trading map? Will the shifting dynamics pit nations against each other in a race for Arctic supremacy? In the last segment, we explored how a Chinese container ship successfully navigated the Northern Sea route, marking a significant achievement not just for Russia, but for China and the global economy at large. This successful journey showcased the Arctic's potential as a new global trade artery, reducing transit times between Europe and Asia. The Arctic is rapidly transforming into the world's new trade corridor. Climate change and melting ice are unlocking previously inaccessible regions, offering unprecedented opportunities for international commerce. The Northern Sea route emerges as the most efficient and safest passage for transporting goods between Europe and Asia, especially amid ongoing geopolitical changes and global warming. Russia is diligently developing this route, enhancing its Arctic infrastructure and ensuring year-round navigation with its powerful icebreaker fleet. This strategic artery is catching the attention of nations like China, which is actively seeking alternative, shorter shipping routes for its products. For decades, the only maritime route for China and other Asian countries involved a lengthy journey through the Indian Ocean and the Suez Canal, almost double the distance of the Arctic Passage. The recent blockage of the Suez Canal by a single vessel, which paralyzed global trade for days, only heightened interest in Arctic routes. As Russia capitalizes on this critical artery, it significantly influences the future of global trade. Meanwhile, the United States and its allies are continually challenging Russia's territorial claims over the Northern Sea route, asserting it traverses international waters and should be accessible to all nations. Yet, even if they succeed in gaining access, a pressing question looms: how will they navigate effectively? All essential infrastructure, ports, supply bases, and icebreaker services rests firmly within Russian territory. Without these resources, navigating the Arctic waters becomes nearly impossible, especially under extreme climatic conditions. As the world watches, the stakes rise. Will Russia solidify its dominance in Arctic shipping, or will geopolitical tensions force a shift in the balance of power? The unfolding drama of the Northern Sea Route could redefine global trade dynamics as we know them. In the previous segment, we explored the complex dynamics of Arctic shipping routes amidst geopolitical tensions. As nations vie for strategic advantages, one question looms large: how can access to the Northern Sea Route be effectively utilized? With all critical infrastructure, from ports to icebreaker routes, firmly under Russian control, navigating these icy waters demands diplomatic finesse and technological investment. The harsh Arctic climate poses additional challenges, leaving many nations reconsidering their approach. As nations look towards cooperative ventures, Russia extends its hand, particularly to China, to harness the potential of the Northern Sea Route under mutually beneficial terms. This partnership is more than a mere proposal. By December 2024, a formal memorandum was signed at the Eastern Economic Forum. This agreement signifies the budding collaboration between Russian ports and major Chinese shipping companies, hinting at the route's integration into the global trade network and enticing prospect capturing the interest of other countries like India. Russia aims for ambitious growth, planning to expand cargo volumes through the Northern Sea Route to a staggering 80 million tons by the end of 2025 and potentially hitting 220 million tons by 2030. However, these lofty goals are not without obstacles. Western nations, particularly the United States, perceive the Northern Sea Route as a direct threat to their economic interests. Previously dominant along key shipping lanes like the Suez Canal, they now see their control waning against the backdrop of Arctic developments. Especially with China poised to capitalize on these changes. In response, Western efforts are underway to slow the advancement of the Northern Sea Route. One strategy may include declaring the Baltic Sea a hazardous zone for shipping, complicating the passage of Chinese vessels. Yet, such moves are likely unsustainable, given Russia's rights to free navigation in these waters, rendering any constraints illegal. Despite these geopolitical maneuvers, the development of the Northern Sea Route, fostered by alliances between Moscow and Beijing, remains a cornerstone of their long-term vision. Interest in this crucial shipping passage will only grow, marking it as a transformative element in the global logistics landscape. As the Arctic opens up, the race for resources and market control intensifies, changing the dynamics of international trade in ways yet to be fully realized. What could unfold in this high-stakes game between superpowers? The icy seas may hold answers in their shifting tides. As tensions mount in geopolitical arenas, the Arctic emerges as a new frontier for trade and power. Countries like India are vying to harness the Arctic's potential, striving to establish trade routes that will reshape global logistics. With the melting ice caps exposing rich natural resources, the Arctic is transforming into a pivotal hub for international economic dealings. Imagine the clanking of ice against hulls, the crisp air filled with the promise of untapped riches. This new transportation artery offers Russia an unprecedented opportunity to dominate global logistics and transport markets. Yet, as Russia bolsters its presence, the West remains vigilant, persistently attempting to curb its influence in these burgeoning waters. Faced with looming geopolitical changes, the competition for control over these northern routes threatens to redefine global trade. As nations scramble to secure their interests, the Arctic becomes not just an economic chessboard but a battlefield for technological innovation, and investment in infrastructure accelerates. Vessels traverse these harsh, icy waters, propelled by powerful icebreakers that cut through layers of frost. Specialized ports and supply bases are being constructed, while navigation systems are fine-tuned to ensure safety in an increasingly unpredictable climate. This initiative is drawing in both established powers and ambitious newcomers to the global market, emphasizing the growing strategic importance of the Arctic region. Experts are predicting that improvements to the Arctic infrastructure will rapidly pave the way for new shipping lanes, dramatically slashing transportation times between Europe, Asia, and North America. Could Russia's strategic moves ignite a new arms race, not in weaponry, but in trade dominance? The stakes are high, the world watches closely, sensing the unfolding drama beneath the glacial surface. What twists lie ahead in this Arctic strategy saga? In the ever-evolving landscape of global trade, the dynamics of Arctic shipping are set to profoundly influence international markets. New routes and advanced technologies are unlocking opportunities for previously isolated regions, presenting the potential for unprecedented collaboration. However, this progress demands a high level of responsibility and adherence to international norms from all participants, particularly amidst intensifying competition for resources and influence over global shipping arteries. The future of Arctic shipping is complex and multifaceted. It intertwines economic ambitions with scientific advancements and the critical need to maintain ecological balance. With climate change opening up new horizons for navigation, nations are confronted with the urgent need to create cooperative regulatory frameworks. These mechanisms must ensure sustainable development while fostering beneficial collaborations. The Arctic is transforming into an experimental ground for novel approaches to international trade. Each nation is eager, not only to capitalize on these developments but also to contribute toward shaping a future global logistics system. As countries navigate this intricate dance of power, ambition, and responsibility, the stakes have never been higher. Will nations work together to harness these new opportunities, or will rivalry lead to conflict? But here's the shocking twist: just as agreements are forming, a sudden political upheaval rips through the landscape, jeopardizing everything. What could unfold next that would change the course of Arctic shipping forever?